Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Senator Trent Garner joining us. Hey, Senator, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Jenny. Always great to talk to you and the people at Conduit. They're also great conservatives. I love talking to your network, and I'm very excited to answer some questions about different topics in Arkansas.
Yes, so we are grateful that you're joining us. Hot topic going on right now. We are seeing the rise of the Delta variant, and of course, with that, a lot of unease and anxiety as people are going into the opening of school. People are talking about the bill that was passed regarding the banning of the mask mandate. Talk to us a little bit about that bill. You ran that bill. You were behind it. What are you hearing about that right now?
Well, as you know, one of the most contentious issues that we had during COVID-19 was the mask mandate done by Governor Hutchinson through an executive order. Came kind of a flashpoint for COVID at that time, with many people on both sides of the issue. And I heard from people at that time who said they don't want to wear the mask. We had police departments who said they won't enforce a mask mandate. And if you go to any local Walmart during the time, you see that the stringency of mask mandates were very loose. So this last session, when COVID obviously started to subside some, I knew there'd probably be another flare up, another spike, or we might have a new novel pandemic come to us. So I passed a mask mandate ban. What this means is that every person that listens to this has the freedom of choice to decide what is best for you and your family when it comes to healthcare decisions like wearing a mask. This doesn't prohibit one person from wearing a mask. If that's what you choose for you and your child, if you want to send your child to school, you're allowed to wear a mask. If you want to get vaccinated, you're allowed to be vaccinated. You want to do other social distancing or other measures to help yourself, you're allowed to do that. But the state of Arkansas, the local municipalities, the local school board cannot force you under threat of law to do that. And that's a clear distinction. People should have the freedom of choice to make the healthcare decisions that's best for them and their family. And what that law does is allow that choice to you.
Why do you think this is so controversial right now? What you just said, the freedom of choice. We have seen over this past year with the pandemic, small things, one after the other, these little liberties being taken away, but it's for the greater good. It's okay as long as it benefits our neighbor. But like you said, stripping away that freedom of choice has become so controversial. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because of fear and people being scared. Look, when the pandemic hit, we were all kind of caught off guard on what to do. So I gave a lot of leeway in the first month or two after the pandemic hit to take drastic steps to make sure we could to do it, because we had little to no information about it. But now that we're 18 plus months into it, people know what the pandemic is about. They know what the virus survival rate is. They know the vaccines. They know what masks can do. And unfortunately, the government took more and more liberties. They took more and more steps. And it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of difference. You look at states like Arkansas, we put a mask mandate last July. In the winter months, we had a spike that was high as anywhere else in the nation. We look at some of the places like California and Michigan, where they had these spikes in April. We look in Europe, where now 6% of the people going to hospital have been vaccinated. That's not an anti-vaccination statement. It is that the measures that seem to be put in place are ineffective or don't seem to stop these from happening. So what I decided is make sure people have the choice to do what they want to. The government's tried over and over again with mixed results at best. Let's have people make their own decisions. If they want to wear the mask, they're allowed to. If you want to stay home, let's do that. I think there's some policies we can put in place, like if people want to do remote learning, that should be a universal thing for this next year, make it more accessible if people are really that scared about it. But I probably heard from, at this point, hundreds, not exaggerating, parents, people who do not want the mask mandate, do not want to send their kids there, and said if they put a mask mandate at school, that's going to be a hard decision for them because they do not believe in it. So giving those personal choice liberties back to people, now that we're 18 months plus in this pandemic, now that the information is out there, now that we have vaccines, if you want to take them, it's up to people to do what is best for them. And the people of Arkansas, in my opinion, are smart. They'll do what's best for them. And that's how we should govern.
What do you think about, I've seen people say that this could possibly be repealed in a special session. What do you think about that?
Well, that's another part of passing a law like this. If there was ever a situation where it got seriously bad enough. An example that's been misquoted often lately is I recently said, you look back whenever smallpox first came out, it killed about 1/3 of all Europe and during that time. So a 30% mortality rate. Obviously, COVID's a lot less serious than that. But if we had a novel virus with such a high mortality rate happen tomorrow, we might could look at mask mandates or some other kind of measures in the short term to do that. I personally would probably still disagree with that, but I'm open to that. That's what a special session would be done. But right now, I just don't see that taking away that personal liberty and choice from people. The threat of COVID-19 is real. It's serious. The Delta variant is serious as well, but it's not worth trampling on people's fundamental rights and their personal choice. Allow them to make the healthcare decisions that's best for them, and don't come in with a state law to allow it to happen. I think that's important as we move forward.
But Senator, it is a possibility that this could be brought up in special session. Is that true?
Yes, it could be a special session, or assuming we have a, say like the fiscal session comes up next year, that's possible as well. There's mechanics where we can change substantial law.
So who do you think would run this bill if that were to happen?
Well, right now I'm hearing from people I'm hearing from is the anti-freedom left Democrats. Some of these people early on in the pandemic kind of panicked. I believe one state rep from Northwest Arkansas said we should start panicking about COVID-19. These people have always given into that fear, kind of reactionary, take more control. So I imagine it may be them, but obviously you had to have bipartisan support to do that. So I imagine if a special session was called, the governor's office would have to, of course, be included. He's the only one that calls special session. And then we would see whoever he would bring. I haven't heard of any kind of substantial talk as far as bringing this up in a special session, but things could change in the next few weeks, especially as the pressure ramps up. Unfortunately, some of my colleagues, once the left starts getting loud on social media or Twitter, they can get a little nervous. That doesn't bother me because I know the majority of people in Arkansas are standing with me, but we'll see if that happens. So far, I don't think it's a possibility, but things could always change.
Yeah, speaking of pressure, once it comes to the schools, and especially as, school's about to start, the political landscape can look very differently. You have teachers unions, the Superintendents Association, AAA, and then of course, probably the governor will fall in line. That political pressure can definitely sway some votes, especially when it comes to school. Republicans don't necessarily always vote in unison. And so do you think that if this were to happen, that maybe some of those Republicans would defect on this vote?
Well, they'd have to in order for it to pass. And usually the way this works, as you well know in Little Rock, those conversations happen behind the scenes and in the dark rooms of the Capitol. They don't like being transparent with the public until a vote actually comes up, and then they start doing the spin around it. The reality is though, all those groups you spoke of will put pressure on it, and that's their right, citizens. I'm not upset about that. But I know from hearing from people who actually want to take their kids to school, who actually want to have this choice, who doesn't want to stop anybody else from having that choice. That's the thing about it. Nobody's saying you can't wear a mask. I haven't heard one person make that argument. What they're saying is you can't force me to do that or get a vaccine passport or do these other kind of measures. That's important. So ultimately, if this was a very, very unpopular idea, me as a politician, I would pay attention to that. But I think there's a very loud minority that is making a lot of noise right now, with the majority who is, very happy to have this law, who writes me instant messages or text messages, not in a public forum. They care about this, and ultimately that's the people I'm working for.
And so what would you say to those people who want to basically just stand up for freedom of choice? How would you encourage them moving forward?
Make sure that they reach out to their legislators and let them know their position, put it on their social media, or let their friends know. If there's school board meetings, they can go there and voice their issue and say, hey, this law's in place, we support it. They could, when obviously if they make that decision to send their children to school without the mask on, that's obviously a statement as well. And if the school pushes back, for them to stand up for what the law says and know that they have that right. I think there's a whole lot of machinations behind the scenes right now to try to kind of find ways around the law and things like that. So we'll see a lot of iterations of trying to put mask mandates in place without putting mask mandates in place. And parents, if you're against that, be diligent about it. Call out the people doing it. If it comes to it, there may be even lawsuits in the future. But I hate to be that kind of pressure on it. But the reality is, the left is not going to give up on this issue. There's too much control. It's too much power. There is a fear around the Delta variant, which is some of that's justified. But we can't give up those personal liberties and freedoms. And laws like this one is there to protect people. But if we don't enforce it, the left definitely will overtake it.
Yeah, and a lot of those people who do want that freedom of choice may be scared to speak up and stand out because they do get ridiculed. I know just from personal experience, my daughter did not wear a mask to school last year, and because of health reasons, because her asthma was so acute. And she was one of the very few who did not wear a mask last year at all in her school district. And just from personal experience, as she was ridiculed constantly for not wearing a mask. Kids in her elementary school were very mean to her. They said that she had COVID 24/7. They would say to her, they would double mask and say, I'm wearing an extra mask because of you. And so I just think that at some point on both sides of the aisle, we've got to get to a point where we can say, just treat each other kindly and see one another for what's really happening, and stop with the fear mongering, stop with the name calling, and just allow people to have that freedom of choice, and to not blame one another and say the choice that you're making is killing someone. Like that has to stop.
Exactly. I mean, I was asked by people who's on the, not wear a mask side. Some of them have been calling people out in public. I say, don't do that. They have just much right to wear the mask as you don't. And that's, I might see somebody driving down the street with their mask on and think, okay, why is that guy doing that? But I would never vocalize that. And I'd always treat him with respect. That was so important. There's such a anger on the left about this issue, because in my opinion, masks are marginally effective. I don't think they make that much of a difference. If you look at data across, some of the studies show they do make a little impact, but overall, I just personally don't think they do. And so they're an easy political tool for politicians to point at, and something you can show the world you're doing something about COVID, and they become almost a social symbol as far as I'm really caring about people, when the reality, the science doesn't back that up.
Right. Well, thank you so much for all that you're doing. And is there anything else that you want to add?
No, we're seeing, I think there's going to be a lawsuit about it. I expect that, laws get challenged all the time. I will say that the attorney who's doing it is harassed my Twitter followers. He actually got locked out of his Twitter account. He priorly had a corruption charge for bribing government officials down in Mexico. I guess he can't bribe me, so he's going the lawsuit route. But the reality is, stand up for what is right, stand up for your right to make a decision. And say if that law gets overturned, which I don't think it does, you can still go to your local school board and have a very vocal voice. I think that's what the people need to Arkansas need to stand up.
Absolutely. Start local. All right. Thank you,
yes,
Senator.
Ma'am. Thank you. Appreciate time.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. For Conduit News, I'm Jenny Lauren Dowden. We'll see you next time.